welcome to Conversations in Democracy. My name is Merrill Shapiro. We're here in the beautiful, sunny Flagler County, Florida, and everyone is welcome. It's good to see you all. We have been talking about building the right candidate and getting candidates who reflect our philosophy and our understanding of the world in the office, in our community, and beyond. And Dave Camarca, who's here, who hasn't been here in the past week or two because his flight was routed through Newark Airport. But he was up north to try and buy $20 dolls for Christmas, but now only needs 2, so that's taken as well. So Dave, tell us about your experience.
Okay, I was on a Zoom call with Bernie Sanders people and with his people and some organization that he's making available for training for candidates, which is pretty much what the Democrats also want. As most people probably know, Bernie Sanders is not actually campaigning, he's building a movement. And part of that movement is getting other people to run that is along the same philosophical lines that he is. But I thought that this group could use these organizations who are doing the training. All 3 of them mentioned that they are not actually part of the DNC, but they all emphasize pretty strongly that they want Democrats and or NPAs. Okay, so everybody is...
It's non-party affiliation, yeah.
Right. Okay. The first one is Run for Something. They are looking specifically for young candidates, and they specifically mentioned in their 20s. Sounds like they're much aligned with the David Hogg movement, seeking out the younger people, and they are also more interested in training people for state and local. Now, this doesn't actually work for anybody here, but I'm thinking your sons, your daughters, your neighbors, something like that, you can pass this information on to them. Okay, so that is the name of the organization is Run for Something. Okay. The second one is Contest Every Race, and they are pretty much just the opposite. They're looking for people over 40 years of age. So a lot of people in this room may be interested in that. They brought up some interesting statistics that I think Merrill has touched on before. In 2028, they said of all the races nationwide, everything from dog catcher to president, 51% were an uncontested GOP candidate. 51% of all races in the country. 51%. That's now, they went on to say of the GOP wins in the country in 2028, that 51% represented 70% of the GOP total wins. So it's a matter of getting bodies on that ballot, okay? So anyway, Contest Every Race, looking for people over 40. And let me say right here, all 3 of these organizations, this training is free. You don't have to pay for anything, okay? The third one is National Democrat Training Committee. They specifically mentioned the NPAs that they would like to have, but they're also, Democrats are welcome, of course. They offer what I found to be pretty interesting is what they call a 30-day challenge to gear you towards whether or not you should run for office, and if you should, is it the right thing for you to do, and so on and so forth. But their 30-day challenge, as they explained it, it's not massive homework or anything like that. It's short reading materials, exercise things for you to look into. One small challenge every day for 30 days. Okay?
And it's called National...
That is National Democrat Training Committee. Okay? Now, as far as Bernie Sanders, what he had to say is he's not asking for any kind of commitment from the people. What he asks is anybody who uses these training things that he's recommending, he wants you to support Medicare for all and women's body autonomy. That's the only thing he's most concerned, which suggests to me what his campaigning will be in 2026. Okay? So those 3, and I'm looking at them more for what I can learn from them to be a help to somebody else. I certainly don't want to run at my age, but you can use these training facilities even if you're not going to run. you could make you helpful to other candidates. So you understand. Now, they cover everything from fundraising, organizing, grassroots types of, virtually everything dealing with campaign. They will even analyze what you're doing and whether or not you should run. Although they say don't underestimate yourself, you'd be amazed how many people thought they were ineligible and they're now in office. And the one that comes to mind is that bimbo in Colorado. I don't remember her name. But and anyway, this is what Bernie Sanders. He is not campaigning. He's building a movement from the ground up, and that needs candidates. Okay.
It's exciting.
The-
Thank
the-
you for
yeah,
that report.
right, thank you. So the Democratic organizations, one of the issues is that our school board and our city council are nonpartisan. Will the Democratic Party help us?
I don't know.
Can they help us?
Yeah.
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 that's,
But all of these trainings are available to anybody. The one I really looked into more in depth, they did have a little checkbox there that you support Democrat values. Okay. The others I haven't really looked into,
Yeah.
but I like I said, I'm looking at it more from what I can learn to be of help to some other candidate or
Right.
so forth.
Other questions of Dave? Comments?
Just thank you. That was really informative.
If you look around this table, we are the highly engaged people. And in fact, we can look someplace else to find candidates, but we're the ones who are well-informed and connected and focused. So I would encourage you we'll all get behind you. We don't care if you murdered somebody or were a rapist in your past
Actually, it
life.
doesn't matter anymore.
But we
Exactly.
will, we want to support you, and we have to find candidates.
And
the-
like I said, your
have-
neighbors, your children, your adult children, one of these organizations is strictly for 20-somethings.
Yeah.
So,
Right. If I can, I think we have two people, Arnie and Mark, who have run for office. Did you find it a positive experience, or would you do it again, Mark? And
Well, in my case, would you like to go first? Because I ran for city council last year, and I missed in the primaries by 2 votes. And we discovered, I'm not trying to cry, but there was some people at the DEC that were against me, and they voted against me. Though that would have been 2 votes. I could have been on the city council already.
Right.
And I saved all my signs, and I am running
That's
for
what I
this
want now.
next election.
It wasn't such a horrendous experience that you'd never do it again.
I learned so much.
Good.
I learned so much.
And by the way, that's for all of us. Just because you lose doesn't mean you fold your tent. And
That's right.
You learn.
Learn
You say
and
you're-
go
What
forward.
Frank said,
you're running
Let us
again
know
for
how we can
you
help
pick
you.
yourself
Third
up, you
district.
dust yourself off.
City
and
council?
go on.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
saved all
District
his
3.
signs.
I'm not in the city.
And they had this application process to take Ray's place, because actually Ray beat me by two votes. So I got on his bandwagon and helped him win,
Good.
because he's a good man.
Are you running as a Republican or Democrat?
It's a nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan city
I
council.
know that, but
He's here.
I have, my wife is pure Democrat, I have Democratic values, yes.
I'm a lifelong independent, so it's,
Arnie, did you find it a positive experience? Would you do it again?
I found it a great experience. I ran in 1998 for the county commission. I ran again in 2002. Most of the times I lost by less than 1%. The Democrats did not come out to vote.
That's the problem.
That's-
We're gonna do
that's the
something
problem.
about that.
Yeah.
What can we do?
I
About
started
over and
off-
over again.
I started off with a deficit of 1,800 votes because 1,800 less registered Democrats showed up at the polls.
Well, y'all
And I
remember,
lost by, if I would have had another 400 votes, both of the times I would have won.
Courtney Vanderbilt? Ran for school board.
Yeah.
And she lost by what, 1,800 votes, 1,700 votes? But 14,000 Democrats didn't vote.
Yeah.
14,000.
So maddening.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
If we go out and vote, we can win.
And then I ran in 1999 for the council, for the first council, because we became a city.
Yeah.
December 31st of 1999. I ran against a guy, actually I beat about 7 people in the primary. But who came on the last day? Jerry Full, who was the vice president of ITT.
Yes, yeah.
And I knew I couldn't beat him. In fact, I told my wife I should just walk away now. And my wife said, "You can't do that. You can't.
Yeah.
All these
Quit
people
spending
gave you
money."
money and did this and did that and did that." The first year that I ran, 1998, I had to take $9,000 out of my own pocket. Second time that I ran, which was in 2002 for the county commission, I didn't have to take a dime out of my pocket because I got a lot more than even what I needed. For the council, I think I broke out even also I didn't have to put in any money. But great experience. Would I do it all over again? My wife would kill me. But it was, I'm too old. I wouldn't
You're
vote
not
for a
too
per-
old?
Well, I wouldn't vote for a person 82 years old. I wouldn't vote for somebody 82 years old.
Okay.
You hide it well.
So I'm not, so I'm not old in my mind. I feel like I could probably do it, but I don't think a person 82 years old should vote for anything but,
Well,
I don't know.
that's
Look at the Pope.
Sounds like you come right to college of Cardinals.
Did you find it
Once
in
you're over 80,
financial
you're
burden?
out.
You're out. Yeah, well, we got, like
Excuse me,
Merrill
Kathy, I didn't get your
donated,
question.
you know, we had.
I asked him if he found running to be a financial burden.
Good question.
I could have done maybe more, but we did pretty good. We only spent, like, we only had $1,500. And I almost won
Okay.
on a shoestring.
You know, I
So
was a
if
campaign
we-
manager for actually two people who won.
Yeah.
Both of them
Nobody
were
campaign
Democrats.
manager
Yeah.
does.
By the
Bob
way,
Abbott and
go ahead, and then when respond to Kathy,
Jack Howell, I think.
Kathy D.
Jack Howell.
At any rate, the financial, that's why we need to think about starting a PAC,
Yeah.
so that we can provide a good chunk of money so that the candidates will have it. And
It's a great
their
idea.
expenses, what are your expenses? Certainly yard signs and perhaps web help and something like MailChimp and so on, which costs a little bit of money. All these are expenses that need to be taken care of. If there's no other, Vicky, and then we're going on to Mark, and then Mark, and then you. But go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say something to Dave, and I'm hoping we could connect up for a couple of minutes after this. I was asked to start and lead Flagler 5051 group, and 5051 is the new national organization that has 50 protests in 50 states on one day all the time. And I was in charge locally of organizing a hands-off rally that was very successful here in town on April 6th, and recently I organized a stop deportation rally in Daytona on April 26th, and that was shown on the Rachel Maddow show. So I am leading the Flagler 5051, and I'd like to talk with you about coming onto that page and making some separate posts about each organization and saying, we're an action page, so all posts need to be about action. So I'd like to talk with you about taking the first link and putting it on there and say, this is what this is. They will help you if you would like to run for office, because there's a lot of young people in the group, and my daughter is one of the leaders. She's 22. She has a government position here. And I'm connected to Daytona 5051. They're a sister group, and tonight I have a meeting at 7 o'clock with Florida 5051 people, and we're all going to be on the same page,
Yeah.
so I can share your information forward
Please, why don't you get together with Dave off camera
and
after
spread
we're
it
finished by
around.
rounds and
Spread it
send
around.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Again, so to keep things moving, let's go with the Mark, and then we'll talk to Vicky about the Belvedere terminals. Mark is Webb is finding our city council boring and nothing exciting going on. Nothing much to report, but Mark, why don't you tell us?
6 hours of arguing.
Firing.
Nothing was
Accomplished.
accomplished. The drama continues. Unfortunately, it's eating up all the oxygen of all the things this city needs to move forward. And next Tuesday's meeting, a workshop, is so lengthy in topics that at the end of last night's meeting, they requested to start it an hour early
Oh, God.
because they're going to address things of very much importance like chicken coops in your backyard, the color of your house, these kind of issues that have been kind of lingering in the background. They're blatantly approving 500 more homes. They did it again last night. That caused a huge argument. There was a great number of people. The place, it was full, which was amazing. And there were a lot of people that were there that had strong opinions about a lot of things. But on a side note, I am in the process of working with the city to attempt to develop and locate a First Amendment location on city property per our First Amendment rights of gathering and getting together to speak, to designate somewhere probably, I'm leaning toward trying to authorize the stage area, if you know where that is, over around the corner from the movie theater, as a place where we, or any group, can freely meet, have speakers, have signs, do protests, do things, because law enforcement is becoming extremely concerned about our safety. We see weekly events where protesters are getting very closely clipped by cars, or sadly even killed, accidentally or not. And all of our protests have been on either 100 or over in town by the road. And so Sheriff Staley and his group, I think I'm partnering with them, and they don't even know it, to try to force the city to designate an area that we want to call here for a First Amendment location where we can freely gather. I see an opportunity for us to gather and bring in speakers and bring in people that want to talk. Somebody similar to Bernie Sanders that we can grow well beyond what we're doing now. So that's ongoing.
If you have a stage area, you can also do fundraising and stuff.
Well, all the above, we put up booths and things like that. So
Yeah, that's
we're
that
trying
would be
to
a
do
good
that
area.
because
Yeah.
nobody wants to have a life threatened or injured. And a lot of us have experienced very angry, upset people that so far have been roll down their window and flip you off or yell or whatever. But as I've seen in our city council meetings, it has come to pretty much loud screaming. It's passionate right now, and I perceive it's going to get even worse. So as far as the meeting went, it's on YouTube. Get a big box of popcorn and sit and watch it. I know Mark and his wife were there, and it's
I was
and Kathy and
I was
Al.
rewatching it this morning.
We're feasting on each other. So it's sad in the fact that it's causing the city council not to move forward with very critical. The example would be the finding of our city manager and how that went up and down and all over, and right now we don't have one. And-
They fired the agency that was responsible
Yeah,
for
Right, and that was-
locating
The
the
head
talent.
hunters, yeah.
And that was coming.
Yeah.
They didn't, he had been doing this, or that group had been doing a long time. So that's all I've got.
One idea for location that you could consider when you have your meeting is Flagler Pride is having a festival the first week of June. And they're having, down by the
Right.
beach, and they're having speakers, and they're having, everything that you're talking about, but it will all be in that safe
Oh, I
space
thought
area.
the Pride was right there by City Hall at the park, the city park.
Oh,
You talking about Palm Coast?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the past.
Yeah.
My
but,
understanding from, anyway, we'll clarify that, it's
yeah,
not till
that's
June.
an option.
But
For
there's
future
plenty of
rallies.
locations in that area for us to have
Just
it.
3 weeks away, by the way.
Yeah.
Just
Right
that
there.
one.
No.
Something
Yeah, time
else
goes
that,
fast.
something else that might attract people, and maybe bring in a couple food trucks.
Possibly,
Yes,
sure.
that's what they're doing too,
Yeah,
Pride.
exactly.
Food trucks.
Yes, ma'am.
Joanne, you
A
want to?
comment in reference to the location you're talking about. I fully support that idea for speakers, fundraising, gathering, et cetera, but the purpose of sign waving is those people driving by. So that takes you out of that element.
I agree.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be in lieu of.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah,
It should
along,
be
in
one.
addition to.
That would be
Yeah.
one, but we still need a location that's safe, even if they have to put up a barricade or two.
They do that in St. Augustine.
Yeah.
So some of our group members went to St. Augustine for a rally last week, and there was barriers all put up and safety, and they had speakers and everything you're talking about. They did in St. Augustine last weekend.
But we should still be allowed to go.
I'm
on.
trying, and I agree with what you're saying, but I'm
It's-
trying to get ahead of this knee-jerk reaction conversation where the sheriff's department says we can't be in the proximity of the road due to safety, and I want to use that now to get the city to help us find a place within our rights. I mean, I talked to the chief of staff, Jason Della Renzo, whatever, and they charge $250 for an event at that city park, you know, where the Strawberry Festival and that is.
Yeah.
But it's $50 for nonprofit. And when I explained to him that, you know, the First Amendment says we have the right to gather and speak and freely talk, he goes, oh yeah, you're talking about a First Amendment location. That's a good idea. So I'm giving him 2 weeks to do his thing, and then I'll be standing in front of the council with staff asking for a resolution to designate that area. Well, the bottom line is, we could meet there if we wish. They can't stop us
Right.
from meeting there. It says it right in the Constitution. That's why they haven't stopped us meeting where we are right now, even though we're next to the road. So it's better to have it become their idea
Yeah.
to help
That's
us
really smart.
meet so that they can take, because they all claim, as Mark and I know, that they're all nonpartisan up there supporting the entire entity of all of us city people, and I'm giving them an opportunity to prove that, so.
And I think that's important because if Trump is going after Act Blue, that's step one, huh?
Yeah, wouldn't do this.
Anyway,
I may, it's a bit of trivia, and I may have the facts not quite correct. King Charles II, in the end of the 17th century, established a park in London, and in fact, his wife insists that to this day there are no flowers in the park, but it's a sizable park. And it has, at one edge, something called a speaker's corner, where people could come and speak. And in fact, as crowds got larger, what the speaker would do would bring a soapbox. So that's where we get the idea of it. It was on a soapbox, and they would stand on a soapbox so everybody could talk. And that's what we need here, absolutely.
Yes, however, as a librarian, when I was living in London, it was the first place I wanted to go visit was Speaker's Corner.
Yeah.
And I was horrified.
Yeah.
You are not allowed to say anything about religion of any kind.
Right.
You're not allowed to say anything negative about the royal family or their allies. You're not allowed.
And that's why we are blessed. That's why
So
we
shush it.
recognize that we are blessed in this great country with the right to free speech.
For the time
There's
being.
no question about it. For the time being, yes, as long as it lasts.
We had a
So-
similar thing in colonial America, right? They were called pubs.
Yeah, right, exactly. And by the way, and there were town squares, and that's in St. Augustine. There's a gazebo. And you pay because I've done this. We pay $25 to make sure you're the only person who has that gazebo or the only group, and you can stand in the gazebo if you're familiar with it in the square of St. Augustine, and you can talk and you can speak and you can call your friends to come and listen and participate and so on. So we need that here. Yes, it harks back to colonial times. Of course, for us in Palm Coast, ancient history is what, 1995 or something like that. You know, so think of going to the historic area of Palm Coast. Where is that? Where is that? And so on.
The problem is, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead, Donna, and then we're going to go to Vicky and the
The
Belvedere
problem that I
Terminal.
see, Mark, is that we need visibility. That park doesn't get that much traffic. So we need
And
to have
that's
some
true.
place where we can be visible.
Yeah, well, I think there are two issues, and that's the sign issue that Joanne says. when we want to be visible, we need to go to the streets, as dangerous as it might be. And by the way, informing the sheriff that at the pro Amendment 4 demonstration we have each time, and the sheriff kept saying, "Why are you notifying us? It's free." And he said, "We just want you to be on board and know what's going on." I think we need to notify that when we're on the street. But a speaker's corner is off the street, and that shouldn't be a problem, I wouldn't think. Anyway, so let's talk about Belvedere terminals. Vicki, give everybody a quick orientation and be brief, and we'll go on from there. Okay.
Okay, well, there's been a group of us who are fighting against Belvedere Fuel Farm coming to Flagler County, and we thought we were semi-successful a couple of weeks ago where Mike Norris saying that he would not allow the fuel farm to be in Palm Coast, and we felt like it was too good to be true, kind of thing. So we kept our eyes and ears open, and we found out through sources that Belvedere, over the last month, has still been continuing to come to Flagler County every week. So our question was, as a group, okay, they're coming here every week, who are they meeting with? We don't know who they're meeting with. So then it's brought to our attention that Bunnell Zoning Board was having a meeting last night to discuss rezoning like 18,000 acres out, 1,800 acres out in Bunnell from agricultural land to industrial. Yeah. So, you know, that was going on, and so a bunch of community members, some folks from Bunnell had a meeting on Sunday. A member from a group that I run went and got some information there. And then yesterday, myself and another member of my group, we did an interview with Spectrum 13 News about it, and we're trying to keep it in the news and the media. Mm-hmm. And then last night, I'm guessing, the room was full in Bunnell. It was wall-to-wall people. Many people got up and spoke. I am guessing there was 75 to 100 Bunnell residents there, would be my guesstimate. And, you know, people got up and spoke passionately. There was a lawyer there for the project. The lawyer spoke. And many people got up to the microphone and said, "Can you please just tell us what's going on? We know you have something in mind, what would go here." And there was maybe 4 or 5 people that said that. And I was sitting there with my blood boiling, knowing what I knew. And I got up and I got in line, and I looked at everyone in the room, and I said, "We know that Belvedere has been coming here every week for the last month, including last week, and they're meeting with somebody here. Are they meeting with them? Who are they meeting with? And so now, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to get a private investigator? Do you want to get a lawyer?" And this is what I said with my 3 minutes. I was talking to the people, not the board. Mm-hmm. And then after everyone spoke, the board then said that before they voted, they would take into consideration any facts that were presented. So, in other words, what the lawyer said. And would not take into consideration any personal feelings. So everything that all of those residents said were to all the residents, and they all voted, and they put it through. So it's moving on to the next step. So it's moving on to, so we need people to keep showing up. When I leave this meeting, I'm going to meet with a reporter again, and we're keeping it in the news. And another woman from the group, everyone met outside after the meeting, and another woman met with a lawyer this morning at 11 a.m. So we're taking it seriously and moving forward. Ormond Beach was able to get Belvedere out of their town. Well, they had a lawyer. So that's what's going on. We need people to care. We need people to show up to these meetings and speak up, and hopefully the woman that met with the lawyer this morning at 11 a.m. will have more to say today when we meet with the reporter at 2.
Vicki, excuse me, does Bunnell have its own fire department?
That was one of the issues that was brought up.
Yeah, it's a very huge issue. Hazmat issues and training and storage for all those materials. You should meet with the chief of the fire department and get him on board and get those facts to support.
What I think is behind the scenes is, I think there's so much money involved, follow the money, right? Mm-hmm. That these people, if they can put their chemicals and bull crap there, will pay for emergency
Training.
services, or more fire department, or, keeping the roads so their trucks can go in and out. That's what I think is happening behind the scenes. They don't flat out say that, but yes, concerned citizens were saying exactly that, exactly what you're raising. But there's things going on behind the scenes that I think that they would take the money and invest and remedy in that, because in the long run, they'll make so much more money.
Oh, of course.
So, it's we the people up against the local government, the state government, and big oil. So, what are we gonna do about it? And so there are residents that are working on that. What are we gonna do about it?
Do we still not have a sunshine law? Where nothing is allowed to be behind the scenes, that it has to be in the sunshine?
This is Florida, honey.
That's what I like.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
That
I
sounds
don't
like
think
it would
this
be
is-
wonderful.
I don't think this issue has come before a single elected official in Brunel yet, is my understanding.
So the sunshine law, which I've been trying to understand more, because I'd never heard it until I got here, was more directed towards, and Mark can understand, a restriction of conversations between elected officials behind closed doors, like private meetings and whatever those kind of things occurred. If a builder, developer, project person wants to talk to Ray Tyner or somebody within Palm Coast, that's not declared. In fact, right now, they mentioned again last night, there's this huge potential development industry that they're trying to bring on board, and it has a code name, and nobody's even willing to share about it. But the curious thing, Andy Dance through the county
Right,
last said
right.
the county has no intention of requesting for the initial $10 million.
Right. But somehow,
which
some way,
is
Bunnell can
required.
still do it. And
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
no,
understand
well-
all that. They can still do it. And the plot thickens with that. A woman on that board, they're all volunteers on that
Right.
board last night. They're not like paid officials, they're volunteers. And one woman on the board owns that land. So she had to recuse herself from voting, but all the other, one voted no, probably planned. But they put it through, and one of her relatives got up and spoke and said, I don't want this industrial baloney next to my land. And then she's sitting there smiling, obviously wanting the money. So that's a conflict right there that's going on too.
The other thing, Mark, is the sunshine law is also designed to prevent people, officials like on the council, to collaborate.
Behind the
Well,
scenes.
Behind
You know,
Exactly.
they should be required to have class on the sunshine law. When I got on the planning board, the whole planning board was given a class, and we had to, learn the sunshine laws. These people on city council, they have no clue.
Now, are you still on the board?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I thought you
Yeah,
were.
I'm on the planning board. And one good thing is, there's so much there's 19,000 homes planned, right? But some of them are in phase 1, phase 2. The planning board can't stop that because it's already passed us. But anything new, I'm gonna tell you right now, the current planning board for Palm Coast is not favorable to developers. If they wanna build something new from the scratch, we're gonna vote it down. I'm gonna tell you,
Well, my
that,
understanding-
I shouldn't tell you that, but I'm
No,
telling you.
but my understanding is there
But-
isn't that much residential zone.
They've got so much going
property
right now.
left.
They don't need anything right now.
Interesting. So Bunnell is trying to see if they have the appetite for this location before they would then go to the county which is exactly what Palm Coast was
My
attempting.
understanding is, step one was the zoning board, and they put it through.
Mhm.
So the next step is they're like Bunnell City,
Mhm.
and then I think the
go
county,
to
but
county.
I think there's some way that they can still do it, even with the county opposing it, because you are correct. Andy, one of the members of my group, who sends emails constantly, and just got one this morning actually, is Andy Dance, saying, stay on this, keep, it sounds to me like he is against it. But then I wonder who's in cahoots. Because, Mike Norris, turned Belvedere Fuel Farms away. But did he turn it away because he knew that there was a plan B behind the scenes for Benell, and so he gets to look like the shining star, saying that the fuel farm's not going to be in Palm Coast, but he really knows what's happening in another way. And I wonder that about Andy Dance.
You might be giving him too much credit.
And Andy Dance, he's a good guy, right? But does he really know that, it's going to happen anyway, so I'm going to be the good guy and say I'm against it when I know it's going to happen anyway? Because some of them can, look like stars and little roses that in a pile of poop.
Yeah.
At any rate, thank you. Other questions of Vicki and what's going on with Belvedere Farms? It's the fuel company. So I will send her in again if you'd like, by the way, the idea of forming a PAC. One of the things you may have seen if you read it is it requires a treasurer. And the treasurer needs to make regular reports. So if anybody wants to start a PAC, the first thing we need is a treasurer. And if you're willing and interested to be the treasurer for this PAC, then we can begin fundraising. We need to raise no more than, we have to raise at least $500 a year. And we can raise a great deal more, I believe, because I think there are people, I've been told not to use the word liberal, so let's call them progressive lefties, whatever you want to call them, blue people who...
Intelligent people.
I still like socialists.
Socialists, whatever, who will donate specifically for the purpose of supporting the kind of candidates that we all agree we would like to see in office. By the way, I believe in the end it's going to the issue is going to be the Benell elections for seats on their city council. I'm not sure what the schedule is. I am sure the Belvedere people will be making handsome donations, and we need to hold and dangle some money out and say, skip them and take the money from us, and we'll provide you with a great deal more, many more voters than will any other organization. So that's the way we need to organize ourselves to have an impact. Joanne.
A question about the PAC. Are you going to have supportive of any candidate, or is it limited to local or county?
Okay, so by the way, that's something we can decide. And again, I've seen the DEC and the Palm Coast Democratic Club tied in knots over how to distribute the money that they do have, and we need to make a decision, several decisions. A, we want to choose a candidate who reflects our values.
Okay.
B, do we want to give that candidate, be it local or statewide, somebody running for state House or state Senate, do we want to, some people were saying, let's give all our money, get the most for the bang, rather than giving $500 to this one, $500 and making a small impact. Let's give our whole $2,000, $2,500 or more to one candidate and focus on that. These are things we'll have to discuss. And then what candidates are worthy, and some really aren't even trying. Should we spend money and distribute them? Because the club I know of and the DEC sort of said, we have to distribute the money equally, even though this person really just is not campaigning and is really not all that interested. We still have to give them $500. But those are important questions that we'll have to decide.
Who is saying you have to do that?
Who's saying you have what you have to
do? Give equal amounts of different things?
The officers of the Palm Coast Democratic Club.
Oh, so it's Democratic?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Not a PAC,
but they are political, but the clubs are not in effect PACs, but they can accumulate money and then distribute the money.
That's what I'm saying. The PAC you're suggesting here, will you only support Democrats? Will you support independents?
By the way, so we have to decide that. We can either decide that a priori before we start this, or we can accumulate some money, serious money, and then sit and debate it ourselves.
Realistic.
By the way,
we would have to almost agree to also support independents because we are in Florida. And if you put a D after your name, it's a problem,
Let
okay?
let
By
me
the
give you a
way-
hypothetical.
So the
Okay.
first step is we need a treasurer to even form the,
Right,
that. Second
right.
step is decide a few basic
Ground rules.
decisions, ground rules.
You know, would we just support a Republican who is violently opposed to limitations on abortion?
No.
You know,
No.
so we have to decide
I mean,
that.
somebody
So it may
might
not
win.
be
No.
a
What if they
partisan
can win?
issue. It may be a person who reflects our values.
Well,
Yeah.
what if you had a candidate such as, I'm gonna use Josh because he's very, very
Okay,
popular,
yeah.
who switched over and became an independent? Would you just not support him?
Yeah. Well, by the way, so the advantage of that we have over funds that the DEC, the Democratic Executive Committee, has to distribute, and the clubs have to distribute is we can distribute it to anybody without regard to party.
Well, I will volunteer to help with fundraising.
Okay, thank
And
you.
we'll have
That's
a
good.
fundraising.
We need a treasurer though who's going to make those regular reports. By the way, to Katie Leinert, they go right here in the
I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah, well, that's my problem, and my congenital illness is my hand always goes up, and I say yes to everything. That's it's not really relevant. Melissa Holland, former mayor, called me organizationally promiscuous. That is, if this group needs help, I'll run to them, and then I'll go and run to them, and then I'll run, and so on. And I have an
Maybe
inability
Arnie
to
would
say
commit to
no.
1 year.
Mm-mm.
Maybe Arnie would commit to just 1 year.
Okay, well, that would be, by the way, it's very easy to commit somebody else. How about committing yourselves, but that's another. By the way, so we also have to decide, you know, do we have to unanimously, we'll never get unanimity, I don't think, on whether, or just a consensus or a majority vote or how well distributed. There are lots of issues that we have to iron out.
Will they submit
The
an
question-
application?
Yeah, the question is the timing. By the way, and there is one candidate with whom well, you know what, and she won her election. I will not, it was a nonpartisan election, who looked at, I believe it was the club, the Democratic club, but it was a nonpartisan election, asked so many long and difficult questions that the person said, you know what, to fill out this form, I'd be better off getting on the phone and just calling individuals, and did not apply for funds available through the Palm Coast Democratic Club. And by the way, she won her seat. Yeah, a name familiar to you all, but I'll ask me later.
So suggestion, maybe the next meeting or a meeting can be scheduled and that's the topic and we hash a lot of this out.
If we're not going to go forward, there's no sense in doing that.
Absolutely.
But if we're going to go forward, and the absolute necessity if we go forward is to somebody take responsibility for keeping track of the funds and for reporting the funds to Katie Leinert.
He raised his hand.
Joey, is that what you volunteering?
I used to be the treasurer
Oh.
of the Water Bottle Society.
You're elected.
Okay, so you're
Oh,
familiar with this program.
I
Okay.
vote for you.
Joe, we're all fine. We're all
You got my
Second.
vote.
all in favor of Joe.
You will get a unanimous
Any
vote now.
opposition? You are acclamation.
I wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, Don and I were on the executive committee last year, and which we resigned from because we didn't. They had $1,000 to give
Yeah.
to 4 candidates, and they decided one person had decided that they were going to give 500 to one and 500 to another, and leave the other 2 out.
Yeah, so
And-
you have to think about that. Yeah.
And they gave the money to the 2 people that had the most money, and the 2 people that needed it the most went without.
Yeah,
That ticked us off. We quit.
Understandably, and we need to
Yeah.
work out
Figure
some
that
kind
out.
of system, and we decide the money. Fortunately, yeah, we're not an organ of the Democratic Party like they are, so we can do whatever we damn well please.
Mary,
Yeah.
do you think that
That's
there's,
nice.
Meryl, do you think that there's information, like, we're not the first pack, right?
Right,
So there's
right.
probably stuff out there
Uh,
already, people worked
Yeah.
all this stuff out that I can research.
By the way, Ralph Lightfoot
We're
had
starting a PAC.
yeah. Ralph Lightfoot had a local
All
PAC.
right.
And it had some names similar to what Joanne
I like
had
the research.
suggested, like, you know, Neighbors for a Better Flagler County or something like that, and raised several $1,000s and distributed it. And I don't know how the distribution, that's what we're talking about now, how it actually went, but it does, I believe it will encourage people to run for office. who say, I'm a little bit less concerned about running the necessary money. What does it cost to run for city council, would you suggest?
Well, you know,
And it's sad that there are dollar figures on this.
we ended up just over $1,500.
Okay.
Jeff Sive, he spent about 13.
Oh, really?
Because, well, we just didn't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
and we didn't have a lot of help.
How much did your opponents raise?
Well, Ray Stevens self-supported himself, probably spent about 10 grand.
Yes, 10 grand, okay, so keep that.
Ty Miller spent $40,000.
40,
But he was on, he
But-
Republican supported.
Right.
But that was from the builders.
Yeah, right, so I'm not worried about where the money comes, how
Yeah.
much money do you need to buy, if you had had another $5,000, what would you have done with it?
Mailers. Mailers.
Mailers, okay.
Yeah, that's the one thing I didn't have. I had big signs and I had plenty of little signs.
And we had a nice website.
And we had a nice website. But I kept all my signs, so that's an
Right,
expense I don't
I
have.
understand the
But the
difference.
other part of the expenses that are involved is that if you don't, you could go out and you can collect petitions. That's a lot of work.
Yes,
And then you've got to verify them all before you turn them in. We learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah, we had,
The
quite
other-
a few turned back.
The alternative is that if you don't want to go to the petition route, there is a fee. I think it's $2,500
For District
for
3.
District
well, it
3.
depends on, yeah, was it that high, or is it, yeah, okay,
For District 3, because District 3 is big,
yeah, okay.
so it costs more.
Right. So all these are factors, and the whole purpose, again, is just to encourage people to run for office, and perhaps it's somebody sitting around this table, but we do need to encourage our people to run for office and support them and help them. Again, Bunnell elections are, I'm not sure of the schedule, but we have to find candidates who are opposed to Belvedere Farms and make sure that they get elected, and not the people who accept large contributions from the Belvedere people, for example.
And a good way to bring attention to PAC, a fundraiser we could do is next year is the 250th birthday of the Declaration of Independence.
That's right.
And we could do something if we could get that park place,
Yeah.
and do something on the Constitution, and make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
think.
There are
there-
many things,
Yeah, and it does the First Amendment, you know.
Don't forget too, you can have essay contests, you can sponsor an
Yeah,
essay
they're
contest,
also,
and that'll shine a light on.
believe it or not, I
kids
understand that
and
some PACs have
parents.
bake sales. I mean, it said this, we're back into high school and junior high.
Actually,
right?
So, and those kind of
there
things.
used to be cakes on election day.
Yeah.
That they used to at voting places.
And-
This is colonial up into the 1800s at some
Right,
point.
right,
They had cakes because you want to feed the people and make them come
Right.
vote, and that could be turned into something, to get publicity.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
learning fair.
once we form it, now we have
Kids there.
Joe, our treasurer, I want to bring emphasize
I don't-
that, okay? Once we form it, then we can talk about how we fund it, but first we have to form it. Then we'll work on funding it, and then we'll have to struggle, and I suspect it will be a struggle, but that's okay, to determine how we'll distribute those funds.
What is entailed in actually doing the farming?
Kathy and then Donovan?
I was gonna say, so you're gonna take a vote now to see, should we form a PAC?
Okay, yeah, if you're, that's a motion. Anybody second that motion?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. If Joe doesn't vote nay, we're okay. So then, let's go ahead and form a PAC. When you get your email everybody gets an email about this meeting?
Yes.
Send back your suggestion for a name for our PAC. Okay, and let's think about that as well, but.
The one thing that I'd like to bring up is that I believe it was Nikki Freed who said not too long ago that we need to take back the flag.
Oh,
When we
Don't
go
take
to
it
these
back.
places, we
Pretty
need
fair.
to have
That's
What
flags.
hijacked
We-
it.
And the vocabulary.
When-
Patriot.
yeah.
They don't let them say that we're the patriots and not the other guys.
Right.
Take that away from
And in
them.
fact,
Take
we
the
are- we are
vocabulary away,
patriots.
take the flag
Okay.
away, take patriotism away from them.
Amen.
And I can-
Everything they claim is theirs, take it away from
Take
them.
away from them. I agree.
I have a tendency.
Joe and then
I have a tendency to break into jail, so I'm gonna break into jail.
Yeah,
On June 14th,
Flag Day.
are we gonna fly the flag upside down?
Oh.
I think it's disrespectful.
Yeah, that's a.
I think it's disrespectful.
Have you heard there's a big
That-
celebration
that's
for
by the way,
that's happening
shall
here
we
in
just-
town?
President-
So I'm just throwing it out.
What day of the week is June
But-
4th?
When
but
you
I-
have Supreme Court judges that fly the flag upside down
Yeah,
as
yeah.
protest.
And everybody in this room, it's their opinion that we are in danger. It's not everybody's opinion.
It's a signal of distress.
It's
Yeah,
a signal of
and we're-
distress, and everybody in this room
Saturday.
thinks we're in
Is
distress.
that a Saturday?
That's
Okay,
that's
so
the
count
opinion
me
of this
out.
room.
However, we can
And
still.
it's
Make
only
it
an
so we
opinion.
make it.
Yeah.
Let's
It is
fly
still
it
only an
upright.
opinion.
I congratulate Arnie. Every time we voted, we demonstrated for Amendment 4, he brought a big American flag and brought back the flag. And I can another time make an argument that Moms for Liberty are the real communists amongst
Right,
us. And
exactly.
we are
We
the
have a dozen.
the
They're not communists, they're fascists.
Nonetheless,
All
they
the
have,
communists,
they
they're
have
fascists.
claimed a bunch that we need to work on claiming it ourselves. And I think that might have to happen on a national level
Or the
as well.
old
but-
flag with the snake on it.
Uh,
Don't tread on me.
Yeah, we should be
They've tried
flying
to
flags,
hijack
don't
that
tread on
too.
me, yeah.
Like Lincoln,
Right, that's,
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have hijacked.
and the red, white, and
Yeah.
blue, and Old Glory.
At any rate, I'm sorry, Kurt, and then we'll finish up.
There was an article in the Sunday New York Times in the editorial section about book banning in schools. And the bottom line, when you got down to it, because Dave's here and we've got to activate the spaghetti monster church. All these, this is about a school board in Maryland, and the bottom line is you get to it, and there's all these strange religions that are against, they're against gay people. That's what they're really. This is the, and so any of those books that have gay in there, and it just goes on. And it's the Ethiopian Coptic Church. I mean, we're getting out there with some real bizarre churches. And that's another thing that the PAC could do is stop this nonsense.
Of course, the Supreme Court heard arguments have not issued a decision on the Oklahoma case of a religious charter school.
Yeah.
But I understood, and I wanted that's another issue for next week.
Yep.
We'll talk to Dave about the Temple of Satan. I understand they're ready to apply to open a school
That's
as
right up their
well.
alley. That's right up their alley.
And I met with somebody yesterday who was very familiar with what goes on in Clearwater. Clearwater has schools, private schools, that teach Scientology, and that we are supporting with our tax dollars. And I just have to wonder whether Baptists and Presbyterians and Lutherans know that their tax dollars are supporting Scientology, for example. And I know that Baptists are unhappy, but several madrasas, several Muslim schools in South Florida are also being helped by tax dollars. And of course, the Catholics are another breed, since they really are well organized to tap into all sorts of government money, but they are at the same time supporting Seventh-day Adventist schools that teach that the Pope is the Antichrist.
I think it's the Catholics in Oklahoma, they have the charter school.
Yeah, I mean,
That's Catholic,
yeah, and it's not just about gays. The Oklahoma school intends to teach that the world is 10,000 years old, and again, my bugaboo, it's my own personal bugaboo, that the slave trade was a good thing. It brought pagan blacks from Africa to these shores to be baptized in the name of Jesus.
And taught them a skill. You're right.
And then Trump won in 2020.
Yeah, there's so much, but we've gone long enough, so we already all have an agenda for our next meeting. Think about ideas about a PAC, and we'll talk about charter schools and religious schools, and we'll do this again. Thank you all for being here, and we'll do it again, same time, same station.